This is The Second Studio, hosted by two architects, myself, David Lee, and Marina Bordeaux-Renee. And this week it's the two of us in the studio in a long-awaited after-hours episode, during which we talk about anything and everything and nothing in particular.
Wow, that's a very enticing introduction right there.
Unlike our other recordings, which are like, you know...
I was going to say, unlike other podcasts, we actually have topics that talk about...
I know. Well, we do have episodes, you know, with our guest interviews. We do things that are informative about architecture. This is not that at all. So if you want...
This is a reality podcast, so...
have a cough. If you want something that's highly structured... clean,
if you want to learn something, that's not the episode for.
But we do have a topic in mind. The two of us recently visited our old stomping grounds of New York City, and so that's what we're going to talk about today. The journey, the vacation, the trip. We will do another recording about New York's architecture, because we saw maybe about half a dozen buildings there that are notable. And it's worthwhile talking about them, sharing our thoughts. And that will be a more structured episode.
Maybe.
Which will not happen now. It might happen in the future.
Okay.
So, you know...
so don't listen to this one, listen to the next one.
Yeah, titillating,
Great.
Right? Okay. Sponsors.
This episode of The Second Studio is brought to you by BQE Core, the all-in-one firm management software built for architects. Designed by architects for architects, Core helps you track time effortlessly, manage projects seamlessly, and get paid faster so you can focus on design, not spreadsheets. With powerful automation and real-time insights, it's everything you need to run a smarter, more profitable firm. See how BQE Core can transform your practice by clicking the link in our show notes. Available with Revit version 2023.1 onward, Autodesk Insight is a next-generation carbon analysis tool that can help you make the leap to low-carbon design. With only a few clicks, Insight lets you analyze, understand, and track the embodied and operational carbon impact of your design choices. You can then visualize opportunities for energy efficiency and carbon mitigation with its flexible dashboards, helping you make more sustainable and informed decisions. Check out the Insight link in our show notes to find out more.
This is The Second Studio, of course, with myself and Marina. Here we go. So... right, like I said, we went on a vacation for about 10 days, if you include the weekends, right? To New York. Hadn't been there in several years.
Yeah, how many years?
Lived there for several years. So it was kind of, it's a weird thing, right? To live as an adult. New York was our both first place of living as adults in a city, right?
Oh,
but I mean,
adults.
like as a professionals, as practicing and stuff, be there for quite some time, and then to leave it, and
never look back.
We had never visited New York over the course of 6, 7, whatever many years, despite us telling all of our friends on the East Coast that we're going to visit NYC this year.
The pandemic happened, so that did not help us, you know.
You say that, but
we started a business with nothing, so there's a lot of good reasons as to why we haven't been back.
That's fair, but also, you know, the pandemic only lasted for about 2.5 years, so that excuse didn't work for the last, I don't know how many years it's been, 5 years, 6 years, whatever. Anyway, so finally we go back, right? Yeah. A lot of anticipation, I think.
Well, it's funny because I feel like, you know, you leave a place that you know, and...
Wait, you live or leave?
You leave a place that you know.
Okay.
And you kind of like, you don't really look back because otherwise like, you're going to regret leaving, right? And it's funny because I had that anticipation of like, okay, how am I going to feel when I go back there? After now I've been living in another place. Like, how am I going to feel about this place? Am I going to miss it? Am I going to be like, oh my God, I made the worst decision of my life. I should have stayed. Or, oh no, you guess what? That was the right move to do. So there was a little bit of that anticipation. It's kind of like, oh my God, I'm catching up with an old friend, but are we still going to be on the same wavelength? Or is that old friend like not really in line with me anymore? You know? So did you feel like that too?
Well, those were my concerns going into it. And anyone who's been listening to the show for a long time knows that actually the podcast started back when we were living in New York. And then when we left, it was a big change. And we continued to talk about New York.
I know.
Every episode for like a year afterwards, because what happens when you live in New York City we were there for 7 years, about. When you live in a place like New York for that long, you almost can't help but compare every single other city and every single experience you have to that place. And which is like probably quite annoying for listeners who don't care about the Big Apple. So
that, and I think for me too, it was probably the first place where I felt like it was like my home, like my place to be. So there was a lot of emotional attachment to it, going back into it. So
first of all, just going through the journey, right? The trip was also different because this time we were traveling with a kid. And that's a
minor change.
A minor change. So that makes everything like very different, right? Had we visited New York pre-child, then that would have been a very different trip as well. So, sort of. Like we're older. Like I don't care to be out late with or without the kid.
I know. That was one thing. We walked by bars and stuff at like 6 p.m. People were having happy hour. And I'm like, I'm just thinking sofa, Netflix, bed at 9 p.m.
I know.
So boring, but sounds so dreamy
9 p.m.
right
at the latest. So that kind of changed a lot of things. But, I will say, so we landed in, not LaGuardia, Newark, which I don't think I've ever flown into Newark before. And I was kind of nervous because of all the...
We did for international trip.
Did we?
We left for China from Newark.
Gotcha. Okay, but most of the time, right, when you're flying in and out of New York, at least for us, it was always LaGuardia or JFK, mostly LaGuardia. So Newark this time, which is kind of on the New Jersey side of things, different. And, you take a lift into the city, and I was sitting in the front seat. So it was pretty exciting for me who could see things. To be crossing the bridge or going through the tunnel. I don't recall whatever we did.
We did both.
And then see the skyline from a distance. And you're like, oh shit, there it is. It's like, it's real. It's here. I'm here. And we're about to enter the city. And I couldn't help but smile. It was
you were just smiling the whole time?
It was a strange emotion to see the city again. It's like you said, it's like seeing an old friend from a distance.
I remember a flight, and I cannot tell when I came to study abroad where I was flying to. If it was to New York when we first went, or if it was to LA, or if it was to SF. It might have been to New York. I'm not sure, but I remember being in the plane close to landing, and it was at night, and just seeing a bunch of like high-rise buildings. Mm-hmm. And I was like, holy shit, like where are we going, And I was like, I've never been to a place with so many tall buildings before, and it was so exciting.
The first night, so we land and we get in. What time did we get in?
We landed around like 4 or 5 p.m. I think, and
got into the city around like 6 or something like that. Yeah. So
because we had a couple of dirty diapers to change and getting our luggage and all that.
I think for me, the first night was perhaps it felt the most magical because it felt the newest. And I didn't know, returning to the city, if the place would feel so familiar that I would be bored of it, if it would feel completely new because it's been such a long time, and we're now in California where there's like a lot of sky and it's a very different environment. I didn't know. The first night, however, that sense of city magic that you get, that buzz, that happened for me the strongest the first night. And we were staying in the financial district, which actually is a pretty good place to stay as a tourist because all the subway lines go there. It's fairly quiet at night, but I think there's a bit more restaurants and stuff now, it feels like, in Fidei. Yeah. We were a few blocks from the World Trade Center. We were down the street from a pizza place. So, we were in the mix of it. And that first night we got pizza for dinner. And I was, waiting in line to get pizza, line out the door, went by fast, and they speak fast in the pizza place, the whole experience of New York. And I was pretty enamored. I'm like, this is incredible. This is so different from what I've experienced the last handful of years in California. Yeah. And there's just that vibe to the city and the people and the beat of the city. And, there was a homeless guy wandering around the intersection yelling, which was kind of a welcome change to be that close to someone like that. The thing of California, for the most part, or LA at least, is that you're in your bubble through car. So you drive by homeless encampments and stuff like that, but you don't experience them that closely. Not that they exist for like the sake of entertainment, but it's just different, right? To be in that mix right there. And I was pretty stoked. I was super excited. And I remember I think as soon as we got in, we had like a little bit of time before everyone was hungry. And we got up to the hotel, and, when you first arrive at a new place in a hotel, you have the choice of, okay, it's at night. Do I just want to like wind down and unpack and just relax and then hit the city the next day? Or like, what do we do? And when we got to the hotel, I was immediately like, let's go out. We got to go for a walk. I don't want to spend, an hour unpacking, just chilling out. We got to go out. Like we drove in, we passed by all this stuff. We got to go. Let's go for a walk. And that was always one of my favorite things to do in New York, is just to walk without any purpose, without any destination, just walk. And I was so excited to do that. And that's what we did. And it was tremendous. Like I loved it. It was a great introduction to the city again. And of course, like the World Trade Center, we walked through there, and that's a pretty magical and intense place to be at as well. And the Freedom Tower is so huge and so tall. And just the density and the scale of the buildings and the people was I really appreciated it that first night. It felt great.
Yeah, it's funny because you're like, let's go out. And I was like, oh my God, I'm so tired.
Yeah.
I woke up at like, I don't know, 4:30 in the morning before the night, the morning we left to like get everything ready, everybody ready or whatever. And I was like, I feel like I have a tiny bit more energy, so sure. And also, I like a city at night is, especially New York, is always like entertaining, right? And it was the financial district, which I don't think we really ever spent that much time in when we were living in New York. So it was kind of like, well, let's maybe rediscover an old friend, for a little bit. And it was nice, and it was a very different financial district than what it was when we were there, because of all the construction sites and, just kind of like, the grunginess and deadliness of the streets and all of that, after like office hours and this and that. So it was very interesting to kind of experience it in a completely different way.
And also to clarify, like the World Trade Center, when we were there, was still under construction. So like the Oculus had opened before.
The One World Trade?
No, the entire site.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, like, the Oculus was open before we left, but there was still a lot of construction going on. So there's big, tall, blue plywood, painted plywood sheets and fencing and everything. It was chaos. And the fountains were open also before we left, but it was still very cordoned off. And so this was the first time we had experienced that entire, 3-block radius or whatever, where it was truly what it was designed to be in the master plan, meaning there's no more construction fences for that site. It's all open. It's a big park. All the towers are completed, finally. So that was like a very, completely different experience for that area.
Yeah, it was kind of nice to be in a city that feels like there is people, there is things happening. It's not dormant. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like the night we were walking by the Oculus, there was an inflatable screen and people were watching, like, I don't know, it was a basketball game or something. A giant screen out in the streets. They were having a beer, and it was like, I don't know, maybe a couple hundred people there watching stuff.
Probably more.
And I was like, this is amazing. Like, it's a Thursday night, and people are like, let's just go watch the game in the street.
Yeah.
Before we go home, and it's very different. That's one thing I miss about New York and places to live, is that sense of like community of the place, without being like friends with everybody or like extra nice or anything, but just feeling like we're all part of the place. And I don't really feel any of that anywhere else, to be honest.
Our lives are...
I mean, it also has to do with, like, let's say, LA, for example, everybody's driving everywhere. So you don't get that. Yeah. Maybe in, like, pockets, like neighborhoods, you might feel that amongst, like, your streets and a few blocks. But it's not like, in Manhattan, anywhere you go, even in Brooklyn, like, even over, to the other side of the river, like, you still feel that.
New York is a weird place because you have the boroughs, and there's only like, 3 of them that really matter for the most part. But you have the boroughs, but when you go to an event like the one you've described, there's a good chance a lot of people from different boroughs, right? So it's like you're from a different place, but you're all in there together. LA is strange because it's a patchwork city, and it's hyper segregated and divided by freeways and cars. So it's just the joke out here is like, you meet someone, oh, nice to meet you, where do you live? I'm over here, over there. Oh, you're on the east side of the 405. Then I'm never going to see you again because I'm not on the east side of the 405. And it's a joke, but it's also reality. Like, what are the chances I'm going to cross that massive freeway and deal with all that traffic? Not high. New York, everyone has that ability through the subway system to just be like stitched together constantly. The thing that also really impressed me that first night was the scale of the buildings. And of course, Financial District has some really tall towers, like the Freedom Tower, which I think might be the tallest in Manhattan, or for sure like one of the tallest, right? There's probably like maybe 3 that are near Central Park that are just as tall now, but whatever. Like massive, massive, massive buildings. And LA has some big buildings. San Francisco has big buildings downtown, but it's not... I don't know what it is. It's not the same.
It's the height, but it's also like the width of the streets, how many lanes of cars, like, sidewalks. It's just like the whole fabric is... there's something special about that. I also absolutely love that you could just walk absolutely everywhere.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that, neither LA or San Francisco are really, making that possible.
It's true. I mean, San Francisco, you can walk a lot of places, but of course it's defined by these crazy hillsides and mountains you have to traverse, which gives character to the city, but also makes it frankly very divided from a pedestrian standpoint. You're not going to walk up a fucking mountain and go back down. You can barely you can barely drive some of them for sure. Like if you're in an old car, you have to pray to get the top of the mountain.
And
when you get
stop
up there,
sign at the top.
You can't see like below. You're like, I hope there's like something on the other side of the cliff and I'll just fall off the face of the earth. And then you go down, you're like, oh my God, I wish they would just keep going up because it's so steep. If my brakes fail, I'm going to crash and kill somebody. Yeah, it's weird. I mean, you could walk from Phi very easily all the way up to Central Park. It's a decent walk, but you could do it because it's relatively flat. But the height and the weight and the scale of the buildings was really taken aback. And it's odd. Both as a citizen of a city, but also as an architect, I've had a sort of a love-hate relationship with towers. On the one hand, sometimes if I love towers, design towers, I love working on them. I love what they bring to a city. There's a strong argument that the building dense places is actually more environmentally sound. There's community development, all the stuff we talked about. On the other hand, sometimes I'm like, this is utterly stupid, and it's a lot of money and structure, and it produces potentially inhumane, urban spaces. Why don't we disperse ourselves a little bit more? But again, that night, I was like, the other thing that happens with towers, from the perspective of being a pedestrian, and I'm romanticizing it, but I do think it's true. Whether it be conscious or subconscious, when you look at a tower at night and it is 1,000 feet tall or 800 feet tall, and it points all the way up to the sky to where the clouds almost exist, there's this sensation that somehow you are one with the tower, or the tower is a reflection of your capacity and potential to become great and to become something. And I do firmly believe that the skyline of New York, or the skyline of any major city, from a distance or within it, that's part of the magic, is that when you're walking through the place at night, you're like, man, there's like hope. I'm here. I'm part of it. I'm going to get there. And I can see it. I can see the top, right? Like, I'm going to get there. And it's not that you're going to walk to the top, but there's a metaphorical, romantic relationship to the structures. And I'm sure anyone who lives in a place like New York is like, yeah, I know what you're talking about. And I felt that very strongly that first night. I'm like, yeah, this is why towers mean so much to places, because there's that idealistic emotional sensation of hope that comes for an aspiration, right? Like it's possible.
I mean, because it is such an achievement to build such tall buildings. You know, we were commenting on it the whole trip. We're like, it is crazy how you can build such tall, complex towers so close to other buildings in New York. It's like, you know, and like a lot of it, yeah, you'd use like big machinery to move like big pieces around, but still, it's all like, you know, men's and women's who are like assembling it all.
Thousands of window units.
I mean, if you think about, I don't know, building a model out of Legos, right? Like, okay, that's complicated. Okay, now think about that, but like in a building scale, at those heights, it's absolutely nuts. If you think about the number of building components and every single small pieces that goes into any building, now you look at the scale of those. I mean, it's kind of mental, you know, like it's like, what?
It also gets to a point where it's like, what is the point of this, though?
Well, so that's kind of a feeling I had in some portion of the trip, you know, with some of the buildings that we saw. I was like, at some point, what's the meaning of all of that? Yeah. You know, like, what are we exactly doing, you know? But going back to, you know, to the feeling of the city, I think another thing I really love and I really miss is the mixity of, let's say, you know, as architects would speak about, the mixity of program.
Sure.
Like, I love thinking that I'm walking down the street and there is store, there is restaurant, there's people living in those buildings, there's people working on the building across. It's not like, okay, all of the offices are downtown, everybody lives in little houses on the outskirts, like every function is like in a specific zone. I love that everything is just like, you know, like dirty mixed together in one spot. Like, I think that makes for the most unexpected, you know, discoveries and I don't know, like, mixities of things. I don't know. I just think that should be what every city does. Like the segregation of the functions just doesn't make any sense to me.
I agree, and I think there's I'm sure there are cities, and there's a way to create a city that has that, but also provides the open space that people desire to have the feeling of exhaling and breathing and having, you know, place to throw frisbees and kids to play. There's like, I think there's a way to have both. But that mixity and the public space, which is the most powerful, one of the most powerful, of course, is like the sidewalk and the streets themselves, is just like, it's a fucking lightning bolt of energy and of community and of understanding. Like, you cannot help but be more open to different types of people and how they dress and how their ethnicities, their orientations, their whatever it is. When you are on a sidewalk in New York, you are confronted with it every half a second. Yeah. And you wouldn't live in a place like that if you were a racist asshole. Let me put it that way. Because you wouldn't be able to, you'd go crazy, right? And I think that kind of environment breeds an acceptance of diversity, really. That's what it is. Yeah. Talking about the urban design or urbanism of things, that's also the greatest power of cities in a certain regard, is that. When you go to places and cities and towns where everything's segregated, or the town itself is segregated with a small population, that's where you find assholes who don't understand anything beyond their small bubble because they're not confronted with it. Yeah. And I've always said that when I talk to people and they say, what do you miss New York, or what do you miss about it? There's a handful of things I miss. But I think the aspect I've always missed the most, and I think this is still true after this trip, is the people. I miss seeing the sheer diversity of people of all walks of life just doing their thing on that lightning strip of the sidewalk. Yeah. I miss that probably more than like the architecture and everything else, but it all comes together anyway. But that's the thing I miss. And it's weird too, because I think once you've been in a place like that for so long, let's assume you're not a prejudiced dick, that becomes the norm, and anything else that's not that feels very uncomfortable. Like when I go to places now and it's too homogenous, I'm like, this makes me feel...
I mean, when we moved to California after living in New York, it was pretty shocking. Like, you go to the grocery store and it's like, okay, it's mostly...
all white people.
Says the white girl. And like, it's kind of like, where's the rest of us here?
Where are the black people? Yeah, no, it's true. And...
it is weird. But so did you feel like the city was different?
Different.
Like, did you feel
I'll say this. So yeah, there are some things that seemed very different from what I remember. One of them that I was really impressed by. This is gonna sound so stupid, but it's like the sheer volume of buildings. Like, that didn't wear off on me the entire trip. I was like, Jesus, there's a lot of buildings. And then the next, 5 minutes down the next street corner, oh my God, there's a lot of buildings. Like, it's just I was actually asking on the trip I was running, like, I wonder how many buildings exist in Manhattan. Like, there must be a stat somewhere, but it is crazy the number of buildings in Manhattan. The thing I don't remember from the time I was there is the number of classical style, I'll call it classical, I don't know, whatever, classical traditional style, large scale structures that exist in Manhattan that I just don't remember.
Are they cast iron type of buildings?
No, not like the ones in Soho. I mean, the ones that are like made out of brick and stone, like highly decorative. And there seemed to be like, I know they're not new, so no one didn't make them, since we left. But it felt like someone just like inserted a bunch of classical buildings that were really, really beautiful. Some of them not so great, of course, but a lot of them like really beautiful, really ornate. Like, you could just stare at them for hours. And I just don't remember there being that many. There's a few that I do remember very distinctly because I was drawn to them, but the number of them I don't remember. I mean,
it's interesting you said that too. Like, there is also a mixity of buildings there that there isn't in, let's say, LA or San Francisco, right? Like, not to say that all the buildings are interesting or good buildings, but there is a lot of different kinds, which is pretty interesting. I think I wasn't so shocked about the number of buildings, but I think I was not shocked, but kind of like, oh, wow. The amount of money that is spent in building, let's say, more expensive or even baseline modern buildings in New York. And I was like, when you're living there, you're working there, and you start working there, that's kind of like the baseline. Like, that's the standard. That's what like everybody's doing, so it's normal. But once you leave and work in buildings elsewhere and come back, it's kind of like, oh my God, like, how many millions of dollars did they spend just building the lobby of this tower?
Yeah.
Like the details of the facade and,
it's all custom like too.
All of the, and then, you remember like, drawings and things you worked on when you were working on those types of buildings, and you realize like, this is insane. Like,
so much
the quality of the design and the production and the construction. And I mean,
I had the same feeling, and I think it has to do partially because now our lives are so much focused on a single-family residential space where the budgets are less, generally speaking, if you compare a house versus a tower, of course. And also here, things, on the West Coast, even San Francisco or LA, wherever, like, things are spread out. So, like, you kind of think about, like, okay, $5 million for a house is not the most expensive house. It's not the cheapest house for sure. And that's like a good, decent budget for one house on a block in this space. And you go to a place like New York, it's like, it's $5 million for this lobby. And that's, by the way, that's being repeated, 1,000 times right now. Like, it is, and again, like I said, all of it's custom.
I mean, even like, let's call it like luxury rental buildings, which we saw, when we were there. I mean, it was built and designed as like a place where you would own the unit, not rent the unit. For the same price, the same rent price in LA, you would get like a shithole, right? Like, I mean, it's just like the amount of, design and marketing and money and like.
It's just a lot. Like, all of it is a lot.
It's intense. It's as intense as the place is.
Yeah. The saturation of everything is so much. And whereas sometimes out here it feels more like what's the word, sparsity. Thing like spread out, thin, cut it down, cut it back. It's just. I
mean, it comes from the density of the place, right? Like But yeah, it was very. I was kind of like, well, this is mind blowing. I would just come and come walk down the street and just case study all of those buildings because there's a lot of details and thoughts.
But that's also why I do recall transitioning from New York to California was difficult for many reasons, but one of them was like anytime I would hear professionally, like, oh, I don't know if we can do that. I'd be like, shut the fuck up, dude.
I know.
Do not even tell me. Don't even think the question of, I'm not sure we can do that.
I know.
Are you mental? Do you know what
anywhere?
we've done in the past? You know what I've seen on site in the past? Massive. Actually, I don't know what you'd call it when you have a column that's also a beam that a diagonal structural member, for lack of a better word. Like, you have like 4 of those, and each of them are 5 feet wide pieces of steel coming together and being welded. Do not tell me we can't do this like 10-foot cantilever on a house, or whatever it is. Like, don't talk to me about not possible.
I always bring up my story of, when people are like, oh, we need a new footing. Oh, we need to move a foundation on like a 1-story house or like a 2-story house here in LA. And I'm like, look, I worked on a building. We underpin the foundation of a 15-story tower. That wasn't even the one we were working on. Yeah. Right? And there is like sensors on the wall every day to see if the wall was moving. Like that's like insane. And this building was occupied when we were underpinning the foundation. So that one little footing we need to do, no big deal.
I know.
Like no big deal.
And the difference also is a lot
You're
of times
not even living in the house when this is happening. So
And also within a lot of houses they're smaller scale, so it's like this is like not necessarily logical thinking. I understand it, but I'm like, do you know how much people power it takes to do what you just described? Like this versus the footing of a typical single family. I'll fucking go out there and do it myself. Give me a fucking jackhammer. I will do it. Give me a slide. I will do it. Like it's not, and of course there are different things, so you can't compare them. But like subconsciously or consciously, emotionally inside, I'm like, I don't want to have this conversation. Like this is so silly.
I know.
This is so silly. Of course I can do it. It's going to be kind of difficult. This is type 5. Oh, it's type 5. Get your saws out. Cut it, and then lag bolt that shit, man.
I know. But that's the thing. It just sticks. Like, just put a bunch of sticks together. Eventually, it would hold,
Yeah. The stakes are, like, very different in those towers. And again, you can't compare. There's apples to oranges. But that's always, like, my reference point for whatever reason. So when it is type 5 wood structures, light wood structures, I'm like, dude, this is wood.
Possible. Yeah.
Just fucking shave away at it and stick some stuff together. Let's do it. Let's go. I don't want to hear whining about it. It's so difficult. No, it's not. No, it's not. But
the one thing I didn't remember, or I guess it's something and I don't think about when I think about New York, which is probably for the better because it's not, the most important thing, was how grungy and smelly the city is.
Yeah, it's funny. That didn't bother me.
It's funny because I mentioned
that
to you, like, oh yeah, I mean, I didn't even
faze
I just
me.
wrote back into it. And it's
noticed it?
Oh my God, as soon as we went out the hotel into the wild, I was like, oh, holy moly, guacamole.
Like piss, yeah.
It was pungent. It was whew. I was like, I don't know how I did that for 7 years. This is ridiculous. And, I used to at some point work in near Times Square in Midtown, which was one of the grossest area because of the amount of trash and like all of that stink, right? But yeah, even, it's funny because we went with a kid, right? So you have to like think about what is the kid going to experience as well. And then pushing that stroller around. And I was like, those sidewalks are shit in New York. I didn't remember how crappy they were. It's like patch and like uneven. I'm like, this is not ADA or like stroller accessible. Like, what the fuck is this? Like, there's like, I don't know, like holes in the road, and it was just like no curb, or it was just, or they do like, like the corner sidewalk with like slopes down for like
curb cut,
like the curb cut for the wheelchair and all of that. But they do it at a weird angle. So when everybody's crossing, you have like 30 people coming from the other side and you have a stroller. You have to maneuver to the left and then like avoid people and then maneuver to the other side. And there's a freaking trash can between you and the light pole.
Stroller in New York City is a different experience than when you're on foot. And the biggest difference as well is taking the subway. So, generally speaking, when you live live there, you move at a certain pace. Everyone moves at a certain pace, which is like, it feels like 10 times faster than folks on the West Coast. And again, listeners might remember when we first moved to California, I was like so frustrated when we would go out to do grocery shopping. Like, get a fucking move on it, bro. You're in the middle of the aisle, like looking at, frozen taquitos in Trader Joe's. Get on with it. Get on with your life. I got things to do here. Let's go, 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 go. And so, but in New York, so you have a certain pace, and in the subway, there's a certain way, and people move extra fast in the subway because there's no dilly-dallying in the subway. And with the stroller, a big stroller like we had, and with grandparents, whatever else, you don't move like that. But the biggest difference is that you have to take elevators everywhere because you can't really. Well, you could, but we didn't have the capacity to easily take, kid and stroller and grandparents.
We had a big stroller, and we also have a really big baby.
Yeah. So like going up and down stairs was not really an option for several reasons. So you have to take elevators everywhere. That is an entirely different way to experience the subway stations in New York. It's not a desirable way to experience either.
First of all, you have to figure out which stations have elevators.
Yeah, most of them don't.
Which most of them don't, which makes you really think like, okay, if you're elderly, a wheelchair, or a single mom with a kid out that day, like you're on your own, you can only, really use some stations.
Let me quickly reply. A, there's not that many babies, bouncing around in Manhattan or New York City.
There is, but I think they stay within the neighborhood they live in.
The disabled folks, you don't see them out a lot because of what you just said. And the elderly that live in New York and have been there for a long time, just fucking deal with it. They go up and down the stairs. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. And they move at a pretty good pace, too. They probably outpace most young Californians on the stairs.
Yeah, the babies, I think a lot of the nannies just stick around the neighborhood where people live. I don't think they even bother, hop on the train with a stroller. But so you have to first find the stations that have the strollers, the elevators, which not most of them do. So it's, makes complicated. And then within the station, you have to, first of all, you have to find where they are in the station. And then you might need to take 1 or 2 or 3 elevators, depending on which station you're at. So this, stretches your travel time for by a lot.
Yeah, there's an extra 20 minutes, 15 minutes.
If you're in a station, there's 3 elevators and one of them doesn't work, then you're screwed.
Yeah.
And then talk about the elevator experience itself. Okay, there's 3 buttons. You have no idea which one actually is going to take you to the subway line you're supposed to go to. Well,
so I finally figured it out, halfway through the trip, what it means. There's platform, mezzanine, and then sometimes, depending on the size of the station, a 3rd level, which is street or concourse. And
for anyone going to Manhattan, write that down.
Yeah. So, again, normally when you're on foot without a stroller or whatever, you just go up and down the stairs. You don't think about these things. And so platform is you might imagine, that one we could figure, platform is where the trains are at. Mezzanine is the next level above because a lot of the stations, uptown and downtown, the trains and the same train, the A train, goes up and down different directions. If you're on the wrong platform, so let's say you want to take the A train going downtown, but you're on the uptown side, to go to the downtown side, you don't just walk, you have to go up the stairs, cross, and then back down. So that upstairs level is called mezzanine. I don't think I ever once heard of that level being referred to as a mezzanine level when I was in New York. So I had no idea, what the fuck does mezzanine mean? That's what it means. And then concourse is above that if there's a concourse or it's street. So yeah, anyone who's visiting, NYC and taking elevators, that's what all that means. It took me a minute to figure it out.
And then they never clean them.
No, they don't. So in terms of smells, some of those elevators are pretty ripe, pretty fresh.
Yeah,
pretty
especially
fresh.
when it's hot outside. It's the smell is oof, getting right there,
Yeah. Fresh, means the surface of the smell. I don't mean fresh as in breezy and clean, like Febreze.
I know I was there.
There's a puddle. Let's not go over near that puddle. And I think, is that yellow? Yeah, don't look at it too closely, and let's not talk about the shade of the puddle. Just puddle. It's fine. Puddle sounds cuter than yellow puddle. So it's hard to actually talk about the trip without talking about the architecture. But one of the things I'll jump to is, and this is maybe more of a conclusion, which I don't mean to jump to the end, is pretty quickly, I want to say in the first day of us, full day of being there, I was right back into that flow, like I was living in New York in terms of understanding the place, understanding where to go. Of course, we lived there for a long time, but like I didn't think it would come back that quickly. And it wasn't even like, oh, I'm back in this old place. I now consciously feel and recognize I'm getting re-assimilated to the place and I'm getting back in the groove. The transition, let's call it, wasn't even that pronounced. It just happened. And so what that means also is, to be honest, of the 9 days that we were there, it didn't feel like a vacation. It just felt like I was still living and working in New York, but I had some additional time to kind of do other things during the day in the crazy humidity that is New York. So the trip was amazing in many ways, but in that regard, kind of a letdown, because I thought, like, it's been long enough. It's going to feel kind of like a brand new city a little bit. And I'm going to be like the first night, I'm going to feel that way in all the neighborhoods. You know, we're going to Soho, to Midtown, to Hell's Kitchen, to Brooklyn, to blah, blah, blah. East, I'm going to feel like that. Nope, didn't feel like that. Felt like I was just about, ready to go to work at my office, the next day. And it was...
Wow, I'm glad we took time off and spent money to go there.
I have the same thought. It was like, okay, well, the Dr. Jekyll or Mr. Hyde, whatever, the monsters hasn't left me. It's still there.
It's funny because I didn't feel that way. But, a vacation, oftentimes the way it probably should feel is that you go, you're going to relax, you're going to take your sweet time, you're going to enjoy every simple moments, all the places you're going to go to, during the day. And for some reason, I don't know if it's because we went with a baby and we were trying to do stuff every day, make sure we were doing stuff. But I felt like, okay, I have to see stuff. I have to make sure that every day we're checking things off the list and kind of like in some way back to like the old mindset of living in New York, which is never really stop.
Yeah.
Therefore, it wasn't really that relaxing. Like, like you go to Paris for a vacation, you can kind of like flounder around and sit at a cafe for 2 hours. Sit at a cafe for 2 hours, watch people walk by. In New York, you don't really feel like you want to do that. Like you feel like you want to be walking the streets, you want to go like check out the last coolest stuff that's happening. like the beat is different, right? I think it has to do with the city, but also it has to do with us, right? Because probably. That was the beat that I felt when I was living there. And again, slipping right back into it. Because we've definitely gone on vacation to other places where we are hitting it hard. Like we're seeing a lot of stuff, doing 30,000 steps in a day, exhausted, planning things out. Like a lot of our vacations are like that. But still, they feel like a vacation because there's, in my view at least, there's something new to it. And I thought, because it had been so much time, that sense of like newness and wonderment would exist. Didn't really exist after the first night. That's why I said the first night magical, the rest of the time just felt like New York. But that's exactly how I feel when we watch a movie for the second time. Get out of here. I'm like, you know what? I've already done it once. That's it. No, there's a higher level of... So, I mean, I think... To me, I felt like we had to go back to New York, right? Mm-hmm. Because we left and we kind of like never came back. And I think for myself, I had to go, just to kind of like see the friends and family that we have there that, we didn't really have a chance to see in a long time. But also to kind of like make sure I clear the slate and check on my life decisions, And I was like, okay, I think I did what I had to do. And now I know there's not a place for me anymore. What's funny is that, and I think a lot of folks listening who are around our age bracket of millennial-ish have the same conversations and questions with their partners and all their friends of, where am I going to live next? Yeah. Where do I want work? What the fuck can I afford? Can I even afford a house? Should we even stay in the United States? Where? Yeah, exactly. Where do I live? What are the next big moves? And I think that is a very common thing for our generation, maybe more common compared to like our parents, the boomers generation, where things were much more kind of lined up. Well, and local too. And local. And a lot has to do with finances and like the economy and student loans and all that stuff, right? But
that conversation of like, where do I go next? What's the next place is something that's on the forefront of everyone's minds. And especially for those of us who, you know, are architects, a lot of our friends are architects, the city itself is something you think about. Like, do I want to be in that city? Do I want to be in San Francisco, in LA, in Austin, in Miami, and I don't know, what, Seattle, whatever. Like, where is the next place? And you're always kind of comparing and contrasting these things, partially because it's that kind of a hobby of architects, right? And so, to your point, ever since we've left New York, always a part of it has wondered, like, was New York like the place where I should be? Because there's definitely some fantastic things about the city that I remember, and it's still true, of course. And there's also things I don't like, but I'm like, but maybe New York, maybe that was it. Maybe I just didn't quite understand it. And that brings, on the one hand, a certain kind of melancholic tone to life. It can be, because you're always thinking about this other place. But at the same time, there's a little bit of the sensation of hope, because it's like, maybe that was it. Maybe that was that was the magic. That was the sparkle. That was the best meal that I ever had. Was it as good as I remember that it was? And so going back to New York, there was a little bit of that question in the back of my mind now that I think about it. And now, having done the trip, I have to say it is a little bit depressing, because it's like, now I know the answer. You know what I mean? It's like when you don't know the answer, it's almost like the dream of the thing. It could be either way. And if it's a positive, there's that ray of hope, and you don't know. But now I've been there, I know what it is, and I don't think my opinion's going to change unless we jump forward like 25 years from now. And so it's a little bit of a beautifully sad thing. It's kind of like it's done with. I don't need to think about it as a dream. And so clearly what I'm saying is that I don't have any urge to like really be there, or even more specifically, the magic that I was hoping for and the newness of experiencing New York for the first time again didn't exist. And so now I'm kind of like, wow, fuck, man. That's that one. Okay, that's one option off the table. You know.
I was excited to go back, and I think also like you said, you kind of romanticize the things you remember about people and places, right? Yeah. And you kind of like ignore some of the other aspects of it. But it was weird because it felt very familiar, and it felt like the city has changed over the time we were gone, but also just being the same thing over and over again.
Yeah.
Like, it was a different song, but kind of like written with the same words, or like, you know, just the same words, but a different instrument that was playing it. Like, the place was still the same. Yeah, there was new people. Yeah, there was new restaurants, and there's always going to be new restaurants. There's always going to be new people. There's always going to be new towers. There's always going to be like, you know, and it kind of like, in some way, to me, it's kind of like if you go to, you're going to hate that, to like an amusement park, and it's like fun the first time, the second time, and then you go back like the 30th time, and you're like, yeah, it's just kind of like the same thing over and over and over, and it kind of lost its magic in some way, or are you too aware of what makes that place what it is, that it's not magical anymore?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't agree with the amusement analogy, but amusement park analogy. But yeah, no, I understand what you're saying. I have a theory, too.
And now, a little break for our show sponsors. Efficiently managing projects is essential for any office, but it can be challenging. Fortunately, Programma offers a solution. Trusted by thousands of designers in 75 countries, Programma allows you to manage all aspects of a project in one place. It features specification schedules, client dashboards, mood boards, product library, invoices, purchase order, and a powerful web clipper to save and integrate images from the web into your schedules, pinboards, product library, or image library. Click the link in our show notes to learn more and use the code SECONDSTUDIO to save 25% on your annual subscription.
Hey, Marina, would you like to get your as-built faster? Of course you would. IPX has you covered. IPX lets you seamlessly transform your laser scans into LOD 300 BIM and CAD files. Whether you've got your 3D scans already or you need the full laser scanning service, IPX offers instant pricing and order tracking for scan-to-BIM services on any project, no matter the size or complexity. Plus, your BIM files can be seamlessly transferred to Autodesk Construction Cloud, allowing your construction team to start work right away. Start your next project on the 50-yard line with accurate data by clicking the IPX link in our show notes and learn more. I was really surprised because I thought, like, okay, if I stand on this street corner, this intersection, and that intersection and that neighborhood and this neighborhood, I'm going to smile because it's going to feel new again and fresh and different. But man, consistently over the week after that first night, I'm like, this is, okay, yeah, it's here, yeah. You know, Flatiron was actually covered in scaffolding, so that kind of takes away some of their, you know, the beauty of it. But okay, yeah, Flatiron, fine. You know, Highline, oh yeah, new stuff, okay, fine. It just didn't do anything for me. My theory is that part of the reason for that is, generally speaking, when you live in New York City, and New York City is not just Manhattan, you do experience many different streets and street corners, intersections, and places of New York, right, over the course of years. So what happens is that, let's say we're talking about this particular place and this building, this like experience, whatever. You have that experience. You might not be back at that same place again until like 2.5 or 3 years later. Yeah. But that is a consistent, way of experiencing the city. If you look at all the experiences, obviously you have a routine of going to work, but all the other places you visit on the weekends and after work hours and all that stuff, like you have that stitch. So the stitches are like 2.5 year timelines between one memory and the next. So therefore, when you go back and revisit the city 7 years later, those memories of those places don't feel super new because you were already conditioned to experience them only once every 3 years to begin with, or once every 2 years to begin with. I don't know if that makes sense, but I think that's part of it.
Yeah, now that you said it, then there is no hope. I don't know where. I didn't think about it that way. Someone on the trip. Someone on the trip was asking me, like, again, what do you think? What does it feel like being back here? Like, what do you feel? What do you think? Right? And I did say on the trip, though, to that person, I said, well, if I were working for an office and I was a single individual, I would be here. Like, why else? Where else would I be? Why would I be anywhere else other than this place? If you're going to be embedded into a system, a group, an office, right? You might as well be embedded in a place like New York City, where there's a bunch of other people just like you, going out, having fun, and getting drinks, meeting people, going to parks. Like, you might as well do that. So I was going to say, the other thing that kind of like didn't turn me off, but kind of like, you know, confirmed that we made the right choices by not being in New York anymore, was that I felt like, first of all, the subways were surprisingly dead, which
it seemed quieter.
Was very weird to me. Yeah. And then even in the street, like, I felt like the type of people, the mixity of people, the richness of the people that we used to see in the streets when we were there wasn't quite the same crowd.
I agree.
And I was like, I feel like, you know, the architecture and makes the city the place, right? But the people also participate in that. And I felt like it wasn't really like what I was liking about New York when we were there. So, you know, all in all, it just confirmed that, you know, it was the right choice what we did, and there was no regret there.
And the last year and a half in New York, I was ready to get out, but I had the same feeling as well regarding the people. Like, a specific example is, I remember anytime I was in Soho, it was like dense, it was packed, it was kind of a shit show. Kind of annoying, to be honest, at the time. But it was dense, and there was always like really well-dressed New York people, obviously wealthy if you're in Soho, bopping around, like dressed with a little bit of edge, a little bit of uniqueness, you know, moving at a fast pace, fucking badass people. You know what I mean? Like, they just look awesome, and they feel awesome, and they're on their way to they're doing something important, or they think they are. Like, it just that. And we were in Soho a couple of times. I'm like, where are those people? I don't see those cool people. Like, the other thing I've always talked about is the fashion of New York and the diversity of the fashion.
Well, the sartorial used to have New York City. So.
Oh, did he?
Oh yeah, he's been in Italy for the last several years.
Oh, I didn't even know that. But yeah, I didn't see that. I'm like, we're all like the fashion trends have changed, but I'm like, we're all like the high cut pants and fucking wingtips, man. Like, yeah, it's not really the thing anymore, but like, where's all that stuff, you know? We're the bad bitches. I want to see the bad bitches. I came here to see the bad bitches. And I didn't see them a whole lot.
I don't think I saw any at all.
You know, there's a handful of people who are kind of like, you know, doing their thing, but it's,
I feel like even, you know, the street life, like there used to be, you know, like musicians in the subway and in the streets and kind of like random spectacles. And I felt like we didn't come across any of that. I don't know. It was...
Yeah, and of course, you know, being there only for a week, it changes things and whatnot. But I don't know. We were out enough, and we were actually out late enough as well, despite, you know, having a kid. So like I was kind of perplexed by that. And you know, most of our friends don't even live in don't live in Manhattan. They live in Brooklyn. So they're like, I don't know. I don't go to Manhattan. Like, well, I'd be curious. Everyone who's anyone listening who's lived in New York, you know, consistently for the last decade. You know, let me know how it's changed. Maybe COVID was a cause for the change, or are we completely wrong in our interpretation? But I just feel like it wasn't. I did see when I was in Midtown one day, kind of on the east side near Park Ave, near the end of the workday, all of those folks walking around, and that was never really my scene.
I feel like we were like in the Sims or something.
Yeah.
It was so weird. Like
Sim
we
City.
were walking through Midtown, you know, which again used to be neighborhoods where we were working. And I was like,
yeah.
It's like, whoa, did, I don't know, like the Brooks Brothers just had a sale or something? Like, what's going on? Like, everybody's wearing, like, you know, navy blue pants and, like, little light blue, you know, dress shirts and a little vest with no sleeves. And I was like, this is so weird. You guys are all dressed the same way. Like,
well, I think that's always existed, but I never really went that far east. Like, I never crossed Fifth Avenue for the most part.
It's always existed, but maybe it's because, again, we were liking those other types of people. Like, it just felt like everybody walking was just like a clone of the previous person that walked by.
Well, that is the one thing I did not like about New York, is that it definitely has a deep, not history, but a side to it that is very, very conservative. In that way, right? Finance bros. I don't miss that at all. Those people disgust me. You're not fucking doing anything, right? You all dress the same. You're kind of a bunch of assholes, and you're conservative in a certain regard. And I don't miss that. So that it was weird in a moment to find myself in a crowd of these people. I'm like, what's happening? Is this like the Adjustment Bureau? Like, what's going on here?
I wanted to laugh.
Is this a parade that I missed? Like, what is this?
I wanted to laugh. I was like, you guys all look ridiculous.
By the way, you don't even look good. You know what I mean? You all dress the same, but you look really cool. That'd be like one thing, but you all look stupid. None of your pants fit. Like, you make all this money, buy some pants that fit, buy a suit that fits. You look silly.
I'm like, don't you look at your coworker you're going to lunch with and realize that you guys are wearing the same clothes?
Well, that's not their focus, of course, right? Numbers are their focus. I'm trying to see what else.
So how was it traveling with a kid?
So, different.
Besides the elevator aspect of New York City subway.
I think anyone who has a little young kid knows this. It's weird when you have one and they're with you. Because, like, you can only really give, like, at any given moment, like, 75% of your brain at most to everything else. There's always at least a quarter of your brain that's dedicated to the kid. Even if nothing's happening with them and they're sleeping, still 25% of you is, like, directly beaming at them and thinking about them. At most. So most of the time, it's, like, 50-50. And so that makes things, like, very different, right? I feel like there would have been a bit more being able to be present, without having a kid around. And again, that's like every day, every second of your life, from the moment you have a kid is like that. You're always split. Your mind is split. The thing that defined a big part of the trip was that, look, we happen to have made, objectively speaking, one of the cutest and fattest kids that has ever existed in the history of the world. Okay, I think. Now, I say objective because we probably spent about 8 hours a day out, and that's the most you could do with a young kid. In that 8 hours, we're covering not a whole lot of ground because we're all moving slowly, at least 15 different groups of people would comment about how cute the kid is. So I think saying that he's cute is an objective statement. So continually getting compliments 15 times a day so that means more than once an hour by different groups of people is a very fun experience to have.
I was going to say, it actually made the trip more special because how many, like, that's, 15 interactions a day we had with strangers.
Yeah, and not individuals, groups of people.
Yeah.
So the individual count is like much higher than 15 a day.
Like, maybe we would have had a few interactions with strangers because of, I don't know, someone needed to take a picture or, they like your shoes or whatever, like a randomness
if it was
like
just
that.
us.
Yeah, if it was just us. But I think having him with us just made the whole thing so different. And also, like, it was kind of
We got
fun.
some of the funniest comments.
Yeah, we did.
You're going to say something?
No, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say some of the comments like, what were someone bless you? Someone said, God bless you. Just for the
coming out of the subway elevator, a lady who was pushing her own stroller with her own kids, so ours, and she stopped, turned around, looked at me, and was like, "Is this your kid?" And I'm thinking, well, who else would that be?
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah. She's like, oh, wow, God bless you.
We had
she was like, I don't know. She just did not move and stared at us for like quite some time.
We would walk down the street, and for anyone who doesn't have a kid, they'd probably like bored out of their minds listening to this. But we would walk down the street, and literally people would stop and almost turn around to get a better look at the baby.
Oh, we had several people turn around and like knock their friend over and be like, "Hey, did you see that baby? Did you see that baby?"
And it's not just like other parents or women, let's say, right? Stereotypically, we had 5-year-old other kids go, "Mom, look at the baby," right? Like super stoked.
We had an old lady in Washington Square Park who blew kisses over to him as she was walking.
Blew
with
kisses.
Her
we
baby.
had large again. New York City, a lot of black people. We had a large black man crossing the street, going in opposite directions. We pass each other in the intersection. He's now past us, and he goes, "Whoa, that's one chunky baby." I mean, like, it was ridiculous the amount of things that people said. He was called precious. He was called adorable. He was called cute. So I don't want to go on about it, of course, but like, that was definitely a highlight of the trip. So we figure actually the course of 9 days, there was well over 100 people commented about him. And
so that
was different.
If anyone is looking for a model for, baby commercials or movies, just reach out to us.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it was really fun. It was also fun to see what reactions he would have in the different places, like noise and smells. We walked through Chinatown, and I was like, oh my God, I forgot how crazy of this place Chinatown is, and walking the streets of Soho and the places where he would like scream or squeal or smile or laugh or.
I love Soho.
It was just really interesting to experience the city, kind of like through his eyes in some ways.
I'm sure, a parent who loves her kids. I guess you're a parent, you hate your kids, you wouldn't understand this, but like that now becomes a new joy, right? The going places, doing things is just seeing their reaction to it and how they respond to stuff. And actually the same thing when you travel, like we've traveled with my parents a few times to new places for them, and the fun of the trip wasn't even for us because we had been there before. It was just seeing them and them having a good time. Like that is like even more uplifting rather than for yourself. It was like giving a gift, right? That's more enjoyable, giving a good gift to someone and seeing their response. Yeah, that's definitely the thing. Soho he loved. We went to the MoMA. We have to talk about our illnesses, but we went to the MoMA. He loved the MoMA. He loved it, man. We started at the top floor, and the exhibit going on right now, Robert Whitten. I'm apologize. I don't remember the name of the artist from the 70s. Phenomenal. I love the work. Didn't hear of him before. I'm not a big art person, but I love the work. I mean, our kid like just was laughing the entire time, and I was afraid because MoMA was a big public kind of boisterous place, but still it's a museum. So I was trying to keep him quiet, and we had a couple different docents. Like, they were so thrilled to see him. And you got a fair amount of kids.
Their days are probably so boring, too.
And they're like, no, don't give him the pacifier. Like, he was laughing, let him laugh. I'm like, his laughs are echoing throughout the entire floor of this massive, museum. But I was super stoked to go to the MoMA.
Oh, my God, wait until we take him to the Louvre.
Yeah,
he's going to lose his mind.
We pumped in a few galleries in Soho. Also, and I forget the artist names, but it was phenomenal. Like, it was great. And also, frankly, air conditioning. It makes the experience a lot better, too, on a hot, muggy summer day. But as I mentioned, the other thing that made the trip difficult is that 2 days before the trip, my stomach started feeling not super great.
You say it's your stomach. I don't think it was.
Well, whatever it is, man, that
well,
region.
There's stomach, there is what's after the stomach, right? And I think you have a problem with what's after the stomach, not the stomach itself.
The digestive tract.
No, it's once it's been digested.
Well, what is it then?
Your intestines.
Okay, fine, doctor. The intestine. Whatever. My belly hurts. Anyway, so a couple days before, I wasn't feeling great, and actually, I don't have a great... I don't have a very resilient stomach anymore, which really sucks.
I think your whole body in general is shit.
Well, thanks.
I mean, in terms of resilience and bouncing back, I mean, maybe it's since you left New York, all of that immune system left you behind.
I actually think that I think it's just age, but also I think actually in college I didn't take care of myself, and I think it might have wrecked something. But anyway, so I actually was meant to go to an event the night before that we were to leave, and I had to cancel because I wasn't feeling great. And but anyway, the day before we left, I was like, yep, I got food poisoning. I have food poisoning, and things are not staying inside of me, food poisoning. And so, which is like the worst feeling when you're about to we drive to the airport, wait at the airport, get on a plane for 6 hours, and then get on a lift, and like all this stuff, like, oh, this is not great. So I take a bunch of pills, and we get there, and I'm feeling like sort of okay. The next 2 days of New York, I'm like, I feel not great, but I feel better, right? The food is staying in when it should be in. I'm not
sure if it was food poisoning or if you just got some virus somewhere
food poisoning or stomach virus, whatever, right?
Something.
Although I have heard that most of the time when people have a stomach virus, it's in fact not actually a stomach virus. It's food poisoning. Anyway, the first half of the day of the trip, I'm like, okay, I don't feel great, but again, things are being held together. You got me? So I stopped taking medication because I'm like, things are in when they're meant to be in, and they're out when it's meant to be out.
Well, let's tell all of our listeners that you are extremely worried about being constipated. So you were more willing to risk not keeping things together rather than being constipated.
That is a wild spin on the situation that took place. No. So again, I don't have a great digestive intestinal system. People have been listening to this show for years. I'm like, okay, so David was shitting his pants for 3 days before his trip. I don't know if I needed to know that, but but I don't know. Anyone who has not a strong stomach or however you describe it, like sometimes when you travel, like most of the time the problem is staying like regular. So I have to always make sure to take fiber or eat salad, like whatever. No, but I mean it's a legit thing. Like. It's funny, but it's not that funny.
It's funny you show that on air.
No, but this is when you travel and you don't have like a strong stomach, you have to keep track of these things. Yeah. So anyway, I was feeling like okay the first half of the first day, and then we were
and then
on two separate. What's wrong with you? just imagine someone walking down. I just imagine someone walking down New York. Hey, Bob, what's that on the street back there? Oh, what? Did that just roll out of the bottom of your pants?
Maybe I would put that on your Christmas list.
And I actually don't remember, but there were two separate instances.
Oh, God.
Where you were like walking around the city and, and also anytime you're not feeling well or like when you're hungover or whatever, right? When you're moving, you're like, okay, it's when you stop moving and you suddenly realize, well, I don't feel so great. Yeah. So we were walking and we paused to like take some pictures. And I was like, wow, I'm suddenly feeling very kind of like hot and cold and not super great. I'm like, okay, well, we're heading back because we had to take a business call, which is like not fun to do on vacation, but we're heading back and we're walking, so it'll be fine. Walk another 2 blocks. I'm like, nope, hey, I'm going to pop into this Trader Joe's here and use the restroom. It's also when you live in a city and you have an emergency and you need a bathroom, it becomes like, like life or death to find a bathroom. And actually, I do remember.
I know exactly where to find them.
Yeah.
Like after living there for 7 years, where
you keep track of where they are, right?
Yeah.
And so we were like very lucky that like we were passing by a TJ's. TJ's always has like a bathroom. So go in there, and then I realized, very quickly, whatever I have or had, I'm not done with it, and come back out and looking pretty pale, and my folks were with us on the trip and like, you're okay? I'm like, nope, I need to get back now, not just for the sake of the call, but I need to get back because I'm not feeling well.
And you were wearing white pants too, which is
the reason why I got confused was the same journey. So
it's the same.
Yeah, same.
Time,
so we're walking back down.
Walking quite a bit, actually.
Yeah, we walked down another 10 blocks or whatever it is. So now we're near Astor Place, about to get on a subway. I'm at that moment, right, that fork in the road of like, okay, do I feel confident enough to get down to the subway and take from Astor Place down to Fidei, which is like super short. It's like 3 stops. And then get in the hotel, which is just 2 blocks or so from the subway. So it's really close. But do I feel confident enough to be at a subway station and on a train to go there, or do I have to find a bathroom now? And again, it's kind of like a life or death moment. And I was like, I need to find another restroom. And you're like, well, did you take Imodium this morning? I said no, because I was feeling totally fine this morning. And you proceeded to lecture me on why I did not take Imodium. And I was like, I was
saying you should take Imodium now. You should have taken Imodium after you went to Trader Joe's.
No. In that moment where every second matters, I don't need to take Imodium. What I need is a bathroom.
No, but if you were taking Imodium at that moment, wouldn't that help you?
No.
It's not immediate?
No.
I don't know. I don't take Imodium. I don't have issues with my system.
No. It's like if you need to use a bathroom like now, it doesn't like it doesn't suddenly like make you be like, oh God. Oh, okay.
No, but what you should have done, you should have taken some after you left Trader Joe's in case it would happen again.
No,
that's what I would have done.
Yeah.
Just to make sure I could make it back at least.
No, that's there. I think Imodium acts quickly, but it's not like that. It's not
immediate. Yeah, I mean, once the poop is out,
it's pretty quick, but it's not like that, right? It doesn't like, oh, it's gone, like, or whoop, it's back up. So anyway,
there used to be a big Starbucks at Astor Place that closed. That's the place you would have gone otherwise.
I see a McDonald's, which is like 2.5 blocks down, which at this point is kind of far. But there's nothing else in sight, so I sprint to McDonald's. The guy there was not helpful. They didn't have a restroom that was working, whatever other bullshit. And anyone who has been in an urban place, they know that McDonald's, Burger King, any fast food place in an urban environment is not like the McDonald's and Burger Kings in a suburban environment. They're trashy places.
You do not want to go into a McDonald's in New York City unless you have to.
So go there, not helpful. And I've used up valuable time now going to this McDonald's. So I'm now looking at my phone frantically to find a Starbucks, and I end up going to a street corner, cafe, who were kind enough to let me use the restroom. Anyway, point is, first 2 days of New York food poisoning, not great, not fun, and it's just hard to like have a good time when you're feeling, sick. Then, unfortunately, you get sick basically the first or second day of the trip, and you were sick the entire time, but not with what I had.
No, different sickness, but it's funny. I don't even know when was the last time I got sick. I think it might have been when I was pregnant. So it's been like, I don't know, a year or something. I'm usually sick once a year, but when I'm sick, you know. Yeah. And I usually bounce back like decently well. But I think there was the accumulation of not good sleep several days before the trip, and then the trip itself, and then, you know, waking up early, like thinking about everything, taking care of another person and this and that.
Yeah.
And the excitement and flying in airplanes, there's probably bugs in there that, you know, you just catch because your immune system.
I actually wonder if you got it from the airplane. Because where else would you have found it?
Probably.
We didn't have a lot of like close interactions with people because the subways were empty.
So we got there and I was like, you know, tired and this and that. And then the first day after we arrived was pretty humid. And we walked like a lot that day. We walked from the financial district all the way to Madison Square Park. Yeah. So it was, you know, I mean, it was like 16,000 steps, which in some people is not that much. But, you know, it's like...
I clocked in more. I got 20 something.
It's like, you know, city walking. It was hot and humid. And my body doesn't do well in humid. So the tiredness, the traveling, the humidity, you know, hot and cold, like the sweating, and, you know, you go inside somewhere and it's like cold. I mean, whatever, right? Yeah. And I started feeling like the sore throat coming in. I was like, oh shit.
Sucks.
And I'm just now over it after 2 weeks of coughing and blowing green stuff. And it's just, I haven't been that sick in a while with just a sore throat. Don't think I had any fever. I had to leave the MoMA at the very beginning because I was like, I don't think I can make it through a whole museum that day.
That's twice with the MoMA.
Yeah, I have my relationship, a very special relationship.
It's twice now you've been to the MoMA and been sick whilst there.
Which is annoying because I do like the MoMA. Like, I would want to spend the day at the MoMA, you know, just let me be there. Yeah, there's something. But yeah, it was, it started with a sore throat, and then eventually, you know, your nose gets completely plugged, you can't breathe at night, and then it's all like sneezing and blowing, and then it's coughing, and then you're like too hot at night, and this and that. So the whole time I was like, you know, looking for cough drops and tissues, and it was hot, and I have a tendency of having nosebleeds every time I, you know, blow my nose 3 times in a row. So I was like 5 nosebleeds a day, 3 packs of tissue, 15 Ricolas, like... Yeah. But I refuse to let the sickness like mess up my vacation because I'm like, I never take vacation. Like, we don't go anywhere. We don't take trips. We don't take time off. I'm like, I'm not going to be stuck in an hotel room for 7 days. Like, that's just not what I'm here for. So, you know, I would say most of the trip was not enjoyable because you are feeling sick, you know, and we walked a lot. There were some days, anytime it was either really windy, like my right ear was hurting a lot. So anytime it was really windy, like it just made my throat hurt, and it was too hot. My nose
sounds like a really fun vacation.
It was just not fun. It was just not fun. Yeah. And then I was worried that the kid would get sick. So as I tried to be cautious with tissue and anything, but yeah, it just really sucked. And then I'm starting to feel better the day before we leave. And I'm like, this is great.
And then the day before you leave. And the entire time I was surprised because, again, as you've alluded to, I have a very weak body. And so I was like, I'm doing okay so far. And I was amazed because usually, you know, one person gets sick, everyone gets sick. And then the day before or so, I get sick, probably with what you had, but it hit me hard. And again, when I get sick, I'm like out. Which is, you know, it sounds odd, but we were gone long enough to where I almost would have preferred to have been like out half a day during the trip rather than be as sick as I was the night before and then the morning of our flight and all that stuff. Because that morning when we were getting ready to go, I felt like sick. And I remember sitting in the lobby of the hotel waiting for the cab, and you guys were all handling stuff, just sitting there sweating bullets. And there's other families at the hotel looking at me, probably thinking like, oh my God, like, is this guy like contagious? What's going on? And it was one of those things where you feel so bad. You don't care what you look like. You don't care that you're sweating profusely. You don't care. I don't remember the car ride to the airport. We got to the airport super early because I was too sick to do anything else, and everyone was like, "Yep, fine, let's just get to the airport and just hang out."
I'm glad we did. It was less stressful that way, honestly.
And Newark apparently doesn't have carpet, just concrete floors. None of their chairs have a place you can lay down. They have an armrest. So I laid down on concrete floor with like a hoodie, which is like really not. It was freezing cold in the concrete, but I felt so bad. I'm like, I don't care. I'm laying on the concrete floor. And then you gave me your sweater, so I was wearing 2 sweaters. It didn't matter. It was horrible.
I actually think I got sick twice.
It could be because
I started with this. Very interesting recording here, but
yeah.
I started with the sore throat, the plug nose, and whatever. And so the hotel we were renting was kind of like a mini apartment, and I ended up sleeping on the pull-out sofa just to kind of keep my germs on one side of the place.
Yeah.
And also because the kid couldn't sleep in the pack and play, so he had to sleep in the queen bed, which was actually, it was fine. But it was hot and humid, so we had to use some of the AC at night just to kind of like be able to breathe because the air was really dry in the apartment we were in, right? But the thing is, the bed I was on was right across from the big vent in the kitchen, so the air was blowing right direct at me, and so I think that didn't help. And then another night, we didn't use the AC, but it was so hot I slept with the 2 windows open, and the next morning, like my voice was leaving me that day. And I felt like that was like a completely different.
Was that the
symptoms.
day we had Chinese food for lunch?
That's the day we went to the MoMA and we were meeting with a family member at a Chinese restaurant in Midtown. That was so loud. As soon as we got in, I was like struggling with my nose and this and that.
You weren't
as
saying,
soon as
you
we
didn't
got
look
in,
good.
I was like, "There's no way I can speak. I'm gonna have to shout and I'm gonna lose my voice in 2 seconds." I could barely talk. I was like, "There's no way."
You didn't even finish the day. You called it quits at right after lunch. That's to say how bad you were.
We paid for my ticket to the MoMA, made it to the 6th floor, walked 2 rooms.
Within less than 10 minutes, you were like, I'm out.
I went through the room number 2, and then I walked all the way to the end, found a bench, and I waited for you guys, and I was like, I'm going home. I'm going back to the hotel. I don't think I can.
I'm going home. I'm flying home.
Everybody was like, Are you okay? Are you okay? Do you want us to come with you? And actually, I did great. Yeah, because it was actually really fast without a stroller and a baby, getting, up and over to the subway and back out and this and that. And I got myself a matcha on my way back to the hotel. And it was glorious. Okay. I needed something for the
matcha,
throat.
a little slice of cake. Yeah.
I always remember, I probably have mentioned that before, but again, the night before a 23-hour flight to China, food poisoning, never order a salad from a pizza place the night before you travel.
Of course not. What are you doing?
Well, I wanted some fiber before my trip, right?
Yeah, there we go.
Spent the night throwing up, pooping, and passed out on the tile floor of our bathroom. Woke up at 6 a.m. to hop on a cab to start the journey.
This is the only thing
I was like, I don't know if I can do this. Like,
that would have been...
I don't even remember the flight. I don't remember anything at all.
Yeah.
Just remember, try to survive until you get to China.
That's the only thing about traveling that makes me nervous is that it's easier to get sick because you tend to be tired. You're exposed to a bunch of stuff and whatever, and it can really, really, really be unpleasant. The other thing about New York, though, that I guess forgotten, is it is loud. It is a very loud place. Like, I don't remember restaurants being that loud, cafes being that loud, the subway being that loud. It is, and also I was more conscious because we have a kid.
Restaurants, I remember those were loud, but like just the street noise.
Yeah.
I don't think I ever really paid attention to that. Like, he was napping in the stroller and we were like, walking down the streets, and there's a UPS guy who like pulls out the metal dolly from his truck and like ba-bang, and then there is like a jackhammer on this side, and then there is like a crazy person screaming, and I was like, it's like from his perspective, like this must be like madness, right? Like you actually start noticing all of the noise, and I was thinking, and this, the subway like breaking and getting into the station. I mean, I'm like, how many people have bad hearing from just years of living in New York City?
For sure,
like
for
a
sure.
lot.
For sure,
Yeah.
I don't know what like decibel meter it's at, but for all those experiences, like everyday life experiences, but it's loud.
Yeah.
The last thing I'll say, all my years of living there, I'd never had John's Pizza down on Bleecker. And because there was always a line. I'm like, I'm not going to put up with that. I'll just go to Joe's or whatever else. Or Ray's. There's like 15
James
Ray's,
or
right?
Johnny's.
Yeah. And there's a lot of good other pizza places in New York. Finally had John's Pizza. Anyone who goes there and, wants to hit it up, you see a line. The line moves fast. At least when we were there was a guy who, works there who was dedicated to manage the line. He was super, super cordial.
Super nice.
Very polite, very on top of his stuff. I was worried because, again, we have a party, we have a kid, we have a stroller, all this stuff, that it's going to be, I assumed, there's no AC inside. It's going to be crammed. It's going to be very uncomfortable, all that stuff. And this place was not big inside, but bigger than I thought. There's air conditioning. The guy, got us a good table where we could put the stroller. Like
Mm-hmm.
everything, we were so well taken care of. It could have been like a 5-star, customer experience standpoint.
Really
it was
service.
really, really well handled. Super impressed by all of that. Finally got to have their pies, and different from what I was expecting, but it was awesome. It was great. So anyway, I guess a small plug in a certain regard. If anyone's visiting there and you see a line and you're worried about the line, and it goes, there's 20-30 people in line a few stores down, goes by quickly, totally worth it. And it's not like they charge you an arm and a leg because it's John's. It's just... So that was a nice little thing, too. We had a lot of good food aside from that place as well.
Mm-hmm.
Let's wrap it up. So we need to do another one where we talk about some specific buildings. But yeah, interesting to be back after all this time.
I think I'm good for another 10 years before another visit.
The highlight of the trip, one of the highlights was seeing friends. Absolutely.
Yeah.
They're the only reason why I would go back to New York for a vacation at this point. Like you said, we don't take much time off, so I'm going to go somewhere else. I'm not going to go back there again. Yeah. So there it is.
There it is. All right. Thank you, everybody, for listening to this episode. If you like what we do, please support the show, leave us a review, subscribe, share it around with your friends and families. There is a lot of episodes that we have done so far. If you
that are not like this one.
Not like this one. So make sure you check us out. We have a website, secondstudiopod.com. We're on Instagram as well. You can find us on YouTube. And we have the hotline, 213-222-6950, if you have some New York spots that you want to share.
If you have any advice or tips or medication tips to regulate oneself, let me know.
If you are a doctor specializing in stomach and intestine issue, please reach out to David.
Fiber. Okay, talk soon. Bye.
Bye-bye.